Alright, listen up. Because what I'm about to break down for you right now is the kind of Hollywood chaos that only happens when the biggest names in hip-hop start tripping on their own hype at the exact same time. Cardi B is out here paying her way onto New York radio with a snippet nobody even asked for. Doja Cat is being hit with a lawsuit threat from a TikToker who says she got mocked, mimicked, and mentally dragged for months. And by the time you finish watching this, you are going to understand why the entire Rap Girls era is about to combust in real time. So sit tight. Don't skip, because this one is loud. Let me set the stage. Cardi B just quietly slid a brand new single called Haha straight into rotation on Hot 97. And if you know anything about the New York radio machine, you know Hot 97 is the crown jewel, the biggest hip-hop station in the biggest hip-hop market in the world. Getting a spin on Hot 97 is supposed to mean something. It's supposed to mean the streets picked you. It's supposed to mean the DJs believe in the record. But what has fans losing their minds right now is that Cardi B isn't even letting Hot 97 play the full song. They are looping a snippet. A snippet. That's all. And the entire industry is watching it happen in real time. Let me tell you exactly why this looks bad for Cardi B. When a station plays a snippet on repeat, that is not organic radio love. That is a paid campaign. That is a coordinated push. That is what people in the business politely call priority rotation, and what people in the streets bluntly call payola. And Cardi B is not the first artist to do it, but she is one of the loudest artists denying that she does it. That is where the hypocrisy walks in the door. That is where the story goes from a routine rollout to a full-blown industry receipt. For years, Cardi B has stood on the biggest stages and told the world she is the people's champ. That her numbers are the street's numbers. That she doesn't need to buy love because the love is already there. And listen, Cardi B has moments where she genuinely does connect with the culture. Nobody is denying that. But when Hot 97 is spinning a 30-second clip of a Cardi B record that the public hasn't even fully heard, and when that clip is being timed out to a Friday drop like it's a movie premiere, that is not culture. That is machinery. That is a corporate rollout dressed up as a moment. And the fans are catching it faster than the label expected them to. Now let's rewind. Cardi B fans have been waiting on this new era for what feels like forever. She built the anticipation on Instagram. She teased visuals. She teased outfits. She teased everything except the actual music. And when the snippet finally hit, the backlash was immediate. Fans said the beat felt recycled. Casual listeners said the hook didn't hit. Even Cardi B loyalists were quiet about it. And if you know the Cardi B fanbase, silence from them is the loudest possible signal that something is off. That silence is exactly why the Hot 97 push started. Because when the fans don't carry it, the money has to. That is the entire arithmetic of a modern rollout in one sentence. Compare Cardi B's rollout to what Nicki Minaj said years ago, and the whole picture becomes crystal clear. Nicki has openly said the only reason certain artists rack up radio accolades is because they pay the checks that make it happen. Nicki said she refused to play that game because she knows her worth. And whether you love Nicki or hate Nicki, that statement is aging like fine wine right now. Because we are watching a Cardi B rollout that cannot survive without the machine behind it. We are watching a Cardi B era where the promotion is louder than the product. And that is the exact scenario Nicki warned about. The receipts are writing themselves. The timeline is writing itself. And the culture is finally paying attention. And listen, I want to be fair to Cardi B. Because Cardi B is a mother of four. Cardi B has been dealing with a public divorce, a public custody moment, a very public breakup arc, and the mental weight of raising Blossom and Baby Brim in the middle of a media circus. Cardi B is human. Cardi B has stress that would break most artists. But that context does not erase the fact that the Ha campaign is being propped up by radio dollars instead of radio demand. Both things can be true at once. Cardi B can be a mother who is doing her best, and Cardi B can also be a superstar whose rollout is exposing cracks in the empire. Sympathy does not cancel out scrutiny. That is not how the culture works, and Cardi B knows that better than most. Now here is the twist that nobody in the mainstream press is talking about yet. 12 years ago to the exact date, Jessie J, Ariana Grande, and Nicki Minaj released Bang Bang. 12 years. And that song has never been topped by a female-led collab in the pop-rap crossover space. Not by Cardi B. Not by Doja Cat. Not by Megan Thee Stallion. Not by anyone. 12 years of dominance from one three-woman collab. And here we are watching Cardi B try to buy her way to a Friday moment that will probably not even chart above the song she was up against a decade ago. That is the temperature. That is the receipt. That is why the internet is dragging her. Because the girls who came before her did it without a snippet campaign, and the girls after her are trying to fake the flame. Step right up to center stage, Doja Cat. Because while Cardi B is busy funding her own radio spins, Doja Cat is dealing with a legal threat that has the entire TikTok side of the internet in a chokehold. A creator who goes by Goddess Chaos says she is filing a lawsuit against Doja Cat, and she says she is going to court over what she calls a pattern of Doja Cat mimicking her, mocking her, and psychologically antagonizing her across social media for months. That is not a subtle allegation. That is not a passing shot. That is a woman with a lawyer, a filing date, and a demand letter, ready to walk into a courtroom. Let me walk you through this one carefully, because it is genuinely wild. According to Goddess Chaos, she posted a video announcing that she has an appointment with a lawyer, that the lawyer is taking her case on contingency, and that she is filing officially. She said she gave Doja Cat multiple chances to publicly apologize and settle privately. She said Doja Cat instead responded by pushing her limits, disrespecting her deadlines, and challenging her to file. And so, according to Goddess Chaos, she is filing. No more chances. No more warnings. No more DMs. The paperwork is next. The demands Goddess Chaos laid out are as specific as they get. Number 1, a public apology on TikTok tagged to her account, so the audience knows exactly what happened. Number 2, $5,000 upfront to Cash App, with a promise of $95,000 more in installments, totaling $100,000 in days. Somewhere along that chain of events, Goddess Chaos says Doja Cat began mimicking her online, mocking her online, and building a pattern of behavior that she believes crosses into targeted harassment. That is the accusation. That is why she says she is going to court. And that is why the entire TikTok side of the industry is holding its breath waiting for either a filing or a walk back. Here is where I need to give you the honest read. Because I have watched a lot of internet lawsuits die on the courthouse steps, and I have watched a lot of TikTok creators go viral for threatening celebrities with legal action that never actually happens. So let me be clear. Doja Cat has money. Doja Cat has an entire team. Doja Cat has the kind of lawyers who eat contingency cases for breakfast. Suing a celebrity is not a matter of being right. Suing a celebrity is a matter of surviving discovery, surviving deposition, surviving delay tactics, and surviving the emotional grind of a legal fight against a machine. That is the war Goddess Chaos is walking into. And 9 out of 10 times, the machine wins. But here is the flip side. Doja Cat is not innocent in the court of public opinion. Doja Cat has spent the last 2 years throwing subliminal shots at Nicki Minaj, throwing subliminal shots at Cardi B, throwing subliminal shots at fans, throwing subliminal shots at critics. Doja Cat plays the I don't care character in interviews, but Doja Cat cares enough to write bars about it. Doja Cat is not the peaceful spirit her PR paints her as. Doja Cat is petty. Doja Cat is sharp. And if this TikToker has receipts of Doja Cat mimicking her online, that fits the exact pattern Doja Cat has already publicly displayed. The behavior is not out of character. That is what makes it credible. So the real question is not, is Goddess Chaos telling the truth? The real question is, does she have the evidence, the stamina, and the paperwork to survive Doja Cat's legal team? Because a lawsuit without receipts is just a live stream. A lawsuit without a paper trail is just a caption. And the whole culture is going to be watching to see if this filing actually hits a courtroom docket or if it evaporates into another viral moment. That distinction is going to define this story for the next 6 months. Now pivoting straight to what makes this whole story combustible. Cardi B and Doja Cat have history. Not friendly history. The press era. The get into it era. The subliminal era. The unfollow era. Every time Cardi B is having a bad week, Doja Cat somehow ends up in the same news cycle, and every time Doja Cat is trending, Cardi B ends up mentioned in the same breath. And this week is the loudest version of that pattern we have ever seen. It is almost as if the algorithm itself is trying to force these two into a public collision, and the labels behind both of them are doing nothing to stop it. Cardi B is watching her single get artificially pumped on Hot 97 while fans call it a flop in real time. Doja Cat is watching a TikToker gear up to sue her for $100,000 while the internet debates whether the case has legs. And both of these women are technically at the top of the game, technically on top of the culture, and technically the biggest female rap-adjacent names on the planet. And yet both of them are ending this week looking cornered. That is the story. That is the through line. That is why the algorithm is going to eat this video alive. Two queens, two crises, 1 week, and a culture that is tired of the manufactured mess. Let me zoom back in on the Cardi B side, because there is a receipt from her own recent behavior that ties into all of this. Not long ago, Cardi B was performing at the Essence Festival, one of the biggest cultural gatherings for Black women in America, and Cardi B has since admitted, in her own words, that she was screaming through the entire performance because she couldn't hear the crowd, couldn't hear herself, and couldn't tell if the audience was catching what she was throwing. Cardi B said performing in a stadium is different from performing in an arena. Cardi B said she felt echoey. Cardi B said she wants to do a real Cardi B show in a stadium one day. And credit where credit is due. That is a level of self-awareness a lot of A-list artists never reach. And I respect Cardi B for saying it out loud. That is a rare level of transparency for an artist at her level. But here's what fans caught. If Cardi B was struggling in a live stadium with a live band and a live crowd, and if Cardi B is now pushing a snippet on Hot 97 because the actual reception isn't there, then what we are watching is a Cardi B era where the artist is being outrun by the machine that markets her. That is a hard truth. That is not a hater's take. That is the math. And the math is what the label is scared of, because the math is what the streaming numbers will confirm the moment haha hits. Now let me talk about the elephant in the room. Because someone is going to ask why I keep saying Cardi B when the streets have started calling her Barty in a way that carries a little venom. And the answer is simple. When an artist is on top, the culture calls them everything. When the culture calls Cardi B by the harsh version of her name, that is the culture warning her. That is the culture telling her the crown is not stapled to her head. That is the culture saying, prove it again. And that is exactly what haha needed to do, and exactly what haha is not doing yet. That is why the Hot 97 push feels so desperate. That is why the snippet campaign feels so premature. Let's flip back to Doja Cat, because Goddess Chaos is not the only person Doja Cat has to worry about. Doja Cat has a fan base that is famously chaotic, famously fragmented, and famously ready to turn. Doja Cat has burned bridges with her own supporters more than once. Doja Cat has publicly told her own fans they are weird for being fans. Doja Cat has restarted her entire aesthetic 3 times in 5 years. And Doja Cat is now heading into a legal news cycle without the fanbase armor that a Beyoncé or a Rihanna would have around them in the same situation. That is a strategic vulnerability. That is a PR wound waiting to open. That is why the Goddess Chaos lawsuit, even if it never actually reaches a courtroom, is dangerous for Doja Cat. It reopens the conversation of, is Doja Cat a bully? It reopens the conversation of, does Doja Cat mock people who cannot fight back? And it reopens the conversation of, is Doja Cat's public persona a smokescreen for something petty? These are not comfortable conversations for an artist trying to sell an album cycle. These are album-killing conversations. And Doja Cat's team knows that. You can bet the crisis meetings started the moment that TikTok video went viral. Here is a moment of honesty for the audience. I don't know if Goddess Chaos wins. I don't know if Goddess Chaos even files. I don't know if the paperwork exists. I don't know if Rico Nasty was actually involved the way Goddess Chaos claims. What I do know is that when a TikTok creator publicly names a lawyer, publicly names a filing date, publicly names a dollar amount, and publicly reads their demand letter into the camera, the culture is going to remember the moment even if the courtroom never happens. And the culture is going to hold Doja Cat accountable in the streets whether the judge does or not. That is the new court of public opinion. That is the courtroom that never adjourns. Let me talk about Nicki Minaj for a second, because Nicki is the invisible third character in this entire storyline. Nicki has been vindicated twice over this week. Vindicated because Cardi B is being called out for the exact payola behavior Nicki warned about. Vindicated because Doja Cat is being called out for the exact bullying behavior Nicki called her out for years ago. Vindicated because Bang Bang is trending on its 12-year anniversary as proof that the female rap-pop crossover ceiling was set by Nicki, Ariana Grande, and Jessie J, and no one has broken it since. Nicki Minaj didn't even have to post. Nicki Minaj didn't even have to tweet. The culture is doing the receipt pulling for her. And that is the most powerful position an artist can be in, vindicated in silence. You catching this? Because this is the part of the story that the mainstream press won't say out loud. The women who supposedly replaced Nicki Minaj, Cardi B and Doja Cat specifically, are both in the middle of the worst PR weeks of their year, at the exact moment Nicki Minaj is not in the news at all. That is not an accident. That is a shift. That is the culture reordering itself in real time. That is the reason the algorithm is going to keep serving this exact story to millions of viewers over the next 72 hours. And that is why you clicked, whether you realized it or not. Now let me talk about the money side of Cardi B's rollout, because a lot of fans don't understand what a Hot 97 snippet push actually costs. When an artist gets a snippet into rotation on a flagship New York station, we are talking about a promotional budget that starts in the mid-5 figures and can climb into the 6 figures depending on the daypart, the frequency, and the endorsement placement. That kind of budget doesn't come out of an artist's pocket. That kind of budget comes out of a label's promo fund, and that fund is charged back against the artist's future royalties. Which means Cardi B is not just paying for the ha-ha push in cash. Cardi B is paying for the ha-ha push in future income she has not even earned yet. That is how the machine works. That is how the machine eats. That is how superstars end up on song number 12 of their next album, wondering where the checks went. And this is where it gets sad. Because if ha-ha flops the way the early snippets suggest it might, Cardi B does not just lose a chart week. Cardi B loses the promo budget she already spent, plus the runway she needed for the next single, plus the label's confidence in the next rollout. That is a domino effect. That is how eras end. Not with one bad song, but with one bad rollout that eats the budget of the next 3 songs. Cardi B fans need to understand what is at stake. This is not just a flop conversation. This is a career inflection point conversation. This is the moment where a superstar either bends or breaks. Now let me swing back to Doja Cat and give you the piece the TikTok clip left out. Doja Cat has been in this exact kind of trouble before, and Doja Cat has always talked her way out of it. Never through an apology, always through a distraction. Doja Cat has a pattern of dropping a shocking visual, dropping a shocking outfit, or dropping a shocking soundbite whenever a controversy gets too hot. And so if you are Goddess Chaos, and you are watching Doja Cat's timeline this week, you should expect a distraction drop within 7 days. That is Doja Cat's playbook. That is Doja Cat's oxygen. Doja Cat does not fight controversies. Doja Cat buries them under bigger controversies. That is how Doja Cat has survived every single previous scandal. And that is exactly what Doja Cat is going to try again. But here's the thing about lawsuits. Distractions don't survive discovery. You can drop a viral video. You can drop a shocking photo. You can drop a controversial verse. But when a lawyer subpoenas your DMs, none of your distractions matter. And that is the vulnerability Doja Cat is walking into. That is why the Goddess Chaos situation is more dangerous than Doja Cat's team probably realizes. Because if the paperwork actually gets filed, the news cycle becomes hostile to Doja Cat in a way that no visual distraction can override. A subpoena is not a headline you can outshine. A deposition is not a moment you can rebrand. Drop your verdict below. Do you think Cardi B is being played by the machine, or is Cardi B the one playing the machine? Do you think Doja Cat is guilty of what Goddess Chaos is alleging, or is Goddess Chaos just riding a viral moment for cash and clout? Do you think Nicki Minaj has been quietly right about the industry this entire time? These are the questions the culture is going to be arguing about all weekend, and I want your take before we get into the next chapter of the story. Because the comment section on this video is going to become the actual battleground where the fandoms decide who is right. Because there will be a next chapter. Cardi B has confirmed she is dropping haha on a Friday. Doja Cat has to decide whether to respond to Goddess Chaos publicly, privately, or not at all. Nicki Minaj has to decide whether she stays quiet and lets the vindication compound, or whether she jumps in and reminds the culture that she saw this coming. And Goddess Chaos has to decide whether she actually walks into that lawyer's office in the morning, or whether her filing was a bluff to force an apology. For different chess moves, for different players, one weekend to see who blinks first. Let's talk about the receipts landscape one more time, because I want to make sure you leave this video with the full timeline in your head. Cardi B teased the new era. The snippet leaked to Hot 97. Fans went silent. The station started looping the snippet. Backlash hit. Cardi B kept promoting. The Friday drop was announced. Meanwhile, Doja Cat's name got pulled into a TikTok video where a creator named Goddess Chaos said she was filing a lawsuit for $100,000. Rico Nasty's name got dragged into the collateral. Nicki Minaj trended organically off a 12-year Bang Bang anniversary. And all of this happened inside the same 72-hour window. That is not a coincidence. That is a culture reset. That is a full-blown regime change happening in real time on your phone. Now let me leave you with something to think about. Cardi B and Doja Cat are the two biggest female rap-adjacent stars in America right now, and both of them are ending this week with a stain on their brand. Cardi B has a Payola conversation attached to her name. Doja Cat has a bullying lawsuit conversation attached to her name. And both of them are competing for the same shrinking pool of casual listeners who used to think of them as the future of the genre. That is the market. That is the ceiling. And that ceiling is cracking under the weight of manufactured moments. Here is the honest read.